Welcome back to the channel today, guys, and there's just something great about a show giving you exactly what you want to see. Because throughout this new arc, I've been hoping that we would get at least one episode dedicated to the Bushin Festival, just so I can see the ridiculousness that ensues. And we got that today, and I loved it. Now, you would actually think that with a show like Eminence and Shadow, that the premise would get stale at some point. That it would become repetitive and be boring. Be like, oh, this is just gonna happen. He's gonna come in and wipe the floor with people. And even when that does happen, it's still so fun each and every time. That's a testament to how genuinely good this show can be. Because it knows it's ridiculous and over the top, but it goes with it. It fully embraces it, and I love it. And this episode was just ridiculous, over the top goodness, yet again, that I've come to love from this series. I feel like Sid, where I just get like super happy to see people overreacting at everything. It's so weird, but I love it. It's so fun. So let's get straight into it and talk about the Eminence in Shadow, episode 16 today, because it was quite a fun one to me. But even with the ridiculous over-the-topness of this show, sometimes we gotta get a tad bit serious as we transition to the beginning of our show and we hear, what does that girl think she's doing? As we also hear, it appears that Princess Rose has fled to the north of the royal capital. As we see that Alexia and Beta are meeting to figure out what's been going on with Oriana. As Beta says, apparently the Oriana kingdom wants to handle this incident internally as a purely domestic matter. They have sent word to the Midgar kingdom asking them not to interfere at all. As Alexia tells her, I smell a rat in all this. And Beta says, Rose is not a foreign diplomat. She's an exchange student. As such, it would be more appropriate to judge her by Midgar law. But if that were to happen, it could have an adverse effect on relations between the two kingdoms. Princess Rose's fiance is the second son of one of the Oriana kingdom's dukes. Mr. Perv Asshat himself. If she's arrested on charges of harming him, she will naturally be given a harsh sentence. And it's here we see Oriana running through what appears to be the sewers in distress. And I'm still curious to know, like, what's going on with her. But we'll have to wait and see as our episodes progress. But as we transition back to their conversation, Alexia says, anyway, we'll want to find Rose before her kingdom does. Because we need to hear her side of the story. But it's here Beta says that, Princess Rose hasn't told us anything at all about this matter. She probably wanted to avoid the possibility of our involvement leading to trouble between the kingdoms. It would be wise for us not to act rashly. As Alexia says, you mean we should abandon her? As she says, no, not quite. I meant we should consider our next move carefully. As Alexia gets in her face and says, are you saying I'm a thoughtless idiot? If you have something to say to me, say it. As she grabs Beta by the collar and says, don't play sweet and innocent with me. And as Beta keeps her timid act up, Alexia flat out says, your acting is so obvious. But she ends up letting her go and says, I know Rose didn't want to drag us into this, but that's what's pissing me off. We're supposed to be sworn allies, aren't we? Sure, we don't know what's going on deep in each other's hearts, but we decided to work as a team. In that case, I can't abandon her. Of course, I wouldn't abandon you either. Do you understand that? As Beta says, alright then, I'll gather some information on Princess Rose. I've heard some unsavory rumors about her fiance, so I'll look into those as well. As Alexia says, fine, I'll start by seeing if my sister can give me some advice about this, and she turns to leave. But before she leaves, she stops, turns around, looks at Beta and says, nothing phases you, does it? And then she leaves. And I gotta be honest, I like that they're keeping Alexia somewhat relevant to the story. They don't just throw her to the side and introduce, like, 10 more girls, even though they've kind of already done that, but they haven't pushed her to the side, and I like that. I like when shows, like, introduce a character and actually stick with them, and we don't just get overloaded with other characters that make the previous ones irrelevant, because Alexia's still my favorite. I'm telling you guys, there's a reason tsundere are the most popular dures. Alexia is still my favorite of the girls in this show. I don't think that's gonna change, honestly. But as Alexia is leaving, we just hear Beta say, you may feed her a little more information on Perv Asshat and the Oriana royal family. As one of the shadows asks her, are you sure? And she says, if she has more information in the process, she should slow down and take some time to think. We don't want the princess running headlong into trouble. It'll only make trouble for us. And it's here as we transition to the Bushin Festival. We just see our boy Sid reading the paper, because why not, as he reads, fiance stabbing fugitive, Princess Rose, suspected of eloping. Is this an illicit love affair? As Sid's just like, man, I didn't know she had a boyfriend. Still, stabbing your fiance and hitting the road? That's so rock and roll, bro. I'll never get over it. Although, as a mooching background character, it does hurt me to lose a patron. But it's here Sid's like, wait a minute. My focus shouldn't be a background character. Shouldn't be background character behavior right now. As long as there are important scenes going on, what's needed from me is my Eminence and Shadow routine, obviously. As he thinks to himself, man, a secret war unfolding behind the scenes of a magnificent tournament? This is gonna be good. My thoughts exactly. As our boy Sid dips out of there and leaves Skull behind. And it's here he transitioned to a very interesting scene that I want to address. Because as he's walking away, we hear him say, still, having to be there for the advancement of the main story is one of the hard parts of being the Eminence in Shadow. But he passes by a mysterious woman here. And when he does, she turns and says, I smell elf. Now, personally, I didn't know elves had a smell. But then she asks him, do you know any elves? As Sid says, yeah, I got a few elf friends. But then she asks him, I'm looking for an elf. As she says, she should look a lot like me. Sound like anyone you know? She's my late sister's daughter. As Sid turns around and says, you know, I can't really see your face under the hood, so I can't really answer that question. And as she pulls her hood down, Sid is actually surprised as we see she looks exactly like Alpha. Another character looks exactly like her. As Sid tells her, nope, it's not ringing any bells. Sorry, which I think was a good decision. As she asks him, are you sure about that? And he says yes. And all of a sudden, she swings her sword at him. But Sid's not panicking as he says, I know, she's gonna stop right in time. So I'll be a good background character. And as he pretends to fall back, panicked from the sword swing. And upon noticing that, she says, I was mistaken. I thought you were a lot stronger, and extends a hand to him while asking his name. And as he gives it, she says, I'm Beatrix. What a name. But she holds his hand for a really long time as she says, this is a good hand. You will grow stronger. As she turns to leave, and Sid says, I guess she's pretty strong. And alright guys, this is going to be a long video, I can feel like. But theory time, very quickly. At this point, I'm starting to think that Alpha is actually the main character of the show. Like, secretly. Secretly, Alpha's actually the main character of the show. Because it seems like all the plot points have really revolved around her so far. Everything, literally everything, has revolved around Alpha. And this doesn't look any different to me. And I find that very curious. And I really want to see where we go with this, because I think it's going to be interesting, actually. But it's here! We transition to a little bit of fun. As we see Anna Rose sitting and watching the fights as we hear, you're not here to watch this depressing fight, are you? As we see, it's our good musclehead himself, Quentin, from the previous episode. As he asks her, you were watching the third round yesterday, weren't you, little lady? As she says, yes, I assume you were too? And he says, yeah, I wasn't planning on it, but I happened to be where I was looking. As he says, mundane man, what do you make of him? And yes, let me address that. I can't believe I didn't recognize that as mundane man last week. I felt so stupid editing my video. When I realized that as I was editing, and I felt so stupid the whole time I was editing last week. And let me just say this now. It's so perfect that his name is Mundane Man. It's so perfect. I love it so much. As Anna Rose responds and says, supposedly his opponent tripped and fell, but it didn't look like luck to me. As Quentin says, yeah, that punk definitely did something, but I couldn't tell what that something was. But I bet you could tell, couldn't you? Miss Anna Rose Nitch Sihen of Velgada's Seven Blades. As she says, I've given up that name. Now I just go by Anna Rose. And as they continue talking about Mundane Man, she says, I never expected anyone to be fast enough that my eyes couldn't follow their every move. As Quentin says, here I thought he was breaking the rules using a damn artifact. You're saying that's not the case? As Quentin says, well, either way, his match today should tell us. As Anna Rose says, his opponent will be Goldie Gilded, the unbeaten legend. Let's go. He's never lost a single fight. As Quentin asks her, is he tough? And she says, oh, he's famous all right, for whatever that's worth. I've been matched with him 3 times in past tournaments myself. But Goldie's never lost a fight. As Quentin asks her, man, he beat you too? And she's just like, don't be ridiculous. I never got to fight him. He never fights against anyone who could possibly beat him. If he's matched with someone who can, he forfeits. That's how he earned the nickname Unbeaten Legend. What a bitch. And it's here, the time we've been waiting for, as we see Sid and Goldie square up. As Anna Rose says, Goldie's greatest asset is that he can see exactly how good his opponent is. And yet, he chose not to run away from Mundane. As Quentin says, so not even the unbeaten legend could see Mundane's true strength, huh? As Anna Rose says, not only that, but the unbeaten legend has only ever faced off against fighters he knew he could beat, like a bitch. In other words, he's never shown any of us how powerful he really is. And it's here that our match begins. And it's here right away. Goldie kicks off the ground and goes straight for Sid's neck as we just hear a crack and he dodges it effortlessly. As Goldie can just sense he's in danger right here. As he instantly backs away and says, you think you can mess with me? And it's here Quentin says, I didn't see a thing. I was sure the unbeaten legend's sword was about to take off Mundane's head. As Anna Rose says, you're right. No normal person could have gotten out of the way in time. But just before the sword got to him, Mundane cracked his neck. As Quentin's just like, Nani? And she's like, I don't get it either. But as soon as he tilted his head, I heard a crack and he dodged Goldie's sword. Anna Rose says, this man cracked his neck so quickly that even I would have missed it if I hadn't been watching for it. Nani? And as we transition to the fight itself, we just hear Goldie say, you know, I don't like you. You will only have one opportunity in your entire life to potentially beat me. And you just lost it. You threw it away. Show some form of disappointment. A puny weakling with a power level of 17 thinks he can humiliate me? I will bury you. As we see, he actually has a golden dragon with using his aura. And I gotta admit, it looks kind of cool. It actually does, legitimately. As he says, my power level is 4,330. Demon God Fatal Strike. Golden Dragon Blade. As he charges at Sid. But this man sneezes! He freaking sneezes and sends him flying! What a... Yo, Goldie, you suck. As the announcer's just like, the winner is Mundane Man! And it's here as we transition back to Anna Rose and Quentin. He asks her, so, what the hell did he just do at the end? And she says, if I saw what I think I saw, he sneezed. As Quentin's just like, Nani? As she says, Mundane sneezed, and at the same time, his sword swung down. Goldie charged right into it as Quentin's like, there's no way that happened, that's insane. The dragon clashed with a sneeze, and the sneeze won? As she's just like, yeah, that just happened. Goldie said Mundane lost a 1 in a million opportunity, but Mundane never had any need to wait for Goldie to give him an opening. It's almost like, to Mundane, every fraction of every second was an opening. As Quentin says that's ridiculous and walks away and says, if that punk keeps winning, he'll be up against me in the next match. I'll show everyone what he's really made of. Okay. As Anna Rose thinks to herself, could I potentially move the way he does? As she starts sneezing and cracking her neck too. Like, what? Okay. And I kind of love the fact that afterwards, she just looks to both sides like, oh wow, people just saw me looking like an idiot over here, and walks away. But it's here we transition to a more serious scene, actually, as we hear, and that is the security plan for the main Bushin Festival tournament next week. Lord Asshat. As he says, please, call me Perv, Princess Iris. As she says, very well, Lord Perv. But it's here Iris tells him that, your condition appears to be much different than what I heard in the reports about Oriana. As he says, yes, the story seems to have been somewhat exaggerated. You Midgardians are all so prone to worrying. Perhaps we can blame that on Princess Alexia's kidnapping? As Asshat says, I understand you personally went to the rescue of your dear, delicate younger sister. Truly admirable. Our kingdom intends to follow your example. We will solve family problems within the family. As we hear the supposed king say, do as Asshat says. As he says, as you can see, his majesty occurs. As he's clearly brainwashed. As he says, please leave the rest to me, your highness. Negotiations within the court and reconstruction of the knightly order, as well as participation in the Bushin Festival. I can understand your anxiety, your highness. But please, put your mind at ease. And Iris is getting pissed. As Asshat says, our kingdom will do nothing to trouble your pretty little head, Princess Iris. Isn't that right, your majesty? As he says again, do as Perv Asshat says, clearly controlled. And we see that Iris is in a bit of a pinch. And this is why politics sucks. Politics are terrible. You only get half measures with politics. This should prove to you right now. She knows he's guilty. She can't do nothing though. Her hands are tied. Politics, baby. And as we transition back to the Bushin Festival, we see Quentin just got made a fool of, which I love. Of course he did. And even the audience at this point is like, alright, what's going on here? As they say, there's nothing spectacular about Quentin, but he's consistently strong and the odds were in his favor. To think he'd come against this guy and not even get to make a move. God damn, Quentin, you got shit on. And now since Sid is going to the main tournament, they say, for round 1 of the main tournament, he's up against Anna Rose already. And as Sid's leaving, he thinks to himself, man, that guy I fought today sure was awfully enthusiastic. And it's here he sees Anna Rose is waiting for him as she says, I never would have guessed that you'd make it to the main tournament. I admit, I misjudged you. I didn't realize your true strength. But I'd like to give you a warning. I've seen your every move. You'd best not assume you can win in the same ways you have been. As our boy Sid just smiles at her and says, yes, this is it. This is what I wanted. I'm the same way. This is what I wanted. Let's be ridiculous and over the top. As he tells her, allow me to give you a warning. And literally takes off one of his gauntlets like he's freaking Goku and drops it on the ground, making a huge crater. As he says, these weights are chains that hold me back. Playtime is over. And she looks a little spooked right here. As she says, "Don't think this means you've won. You're not the only one who can do this." As she just cracks her neck in front of him. And Sid's just like, what the hell is she trying to do here? As he just walks away. And it's here in our final scene of the episode. We see Oriana running for her life, actually, from these assailants, who I imagine are from the Oriana kingdom. Asshat's men. As she ends up wounding one of them and says, "I avoided all of your vitals. You should hurry and have that looked at," as she runs off and they continue to chase her down. As they scream, "You'll pay for what you've done." And our episode ends. So, okay. Clearly, this is a conspiracy by Asshat. He's trying to get rid of Rose, Oriana, but we don't know why just yet. Why would he get rid of his own fiance? Very interesting question. And this episode was just fun, you know? This is what I wanted. Even if the rest of the season, we don't even focus on the Bushin Festival. Say an interruption happens, and they go off and go deal with Oriana stuff. I'm fine with that. I got what I wanted. And I am content with that. But I am curious to see what exactly is going on with Oriana. You know? I am curious, because in a scene in this episode, Beta realized that, you know, as she was fleeing, she was holding her chest the whole time. So, she's got to be one of the kids, right? One of the chosen children. Which is what I believe is the case. And she's experiencing the symptoms of it right now. And maybe that's why she left. I don't know yet. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see next week. But I am curious, because I've always liked Oriana in the show. So, I'm actually kind of happy that we're diving into her a bit and explaining her character a little bit more. So, that's very good. So, until next time, guys, I hope you do have a great day, week, month, and year. And this show just continues to be great. I love it so much. It's so fun. So, I hope you guys had a fun time, too. But until next time, guys, deuces, and have a blessed day. I'll see you later.